AP Top 25 Takeaways: A playoff without Bama very possible. Even before a game kicked off Saturday, it was huge news day in college football. After UCLA announced it hired Chip Kelly to coach the Bruins and Nebraska fired Mike Riley, the rivalry games began. As the day drew to an end, Auburn had once again given the college football playoff race a seismic shake. Thoughts, takedowns and takeaways from the 13th week of the season: there are only 2 undefeated teams left and neither is Alabama. 1. A college football playoff without number 1 Alabama? Very possible, even likely. At 11-1 and with no chance to win a conference championship after losing to number 6 Auburn, Alabama is going to need help to make it 4 straight playoff appearances. 2. The Tide always does well with the eye test, but the resume is light compared to what Ohio State did to reach the playoff without playing in its conference title game last season. Those Buckeyes reached Selection Sunday with 3 wins against top 10 teams, 2 on the road. Alabama's best victories will be against LSU and Mississippi State. 3. The SEC champion is in. The ACC champion is likely in, even with Miami's loss at Pitt. Oklahoma is in if it wins the Big 12. Unbeaten Wisconsin seems like a lock with a Big 10 title. There would be no room for the Tide. 4. What does Alabama need to happen? No. 8 Ohio State, 10-2, beating unbeaten and number 5 Wisconsin in the Big 10 championship game probably is a good place to start. Number 10 TCU, 10-2, beating Oklahoma could work, too. 5. It could be an interesting test for the selection committee, seeing how comfortable it is having 2 teams from one conference in the Final Four. The selections could provide insight about how much the committee simply differs to the digit in the loss column and what is the value of a conference championship. 6. So who's number 1 now? The Tide has been on top of the AP rankings since the preseason. Miami was number 2. Hello, number 3 Oklahoma. 7. The last time the Sooners were number 1 in November was 2003. 8. The winner of the Iron Bowl might have been number 7 Georgia. The Tide and Tigers pounded each other and Auburn running back Kerryon Johnson left the game early with what Coach Gus Malzahn said was a shoulder issue. 9. The Bulldogs easily took care of business against Georgia Tech and will show up at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the fresher team, looking to avenge its only loss of the season. 10. Most impressive thing about Auburn's second victory in 3 weeks against the team holding the CFP number 1 ranking, nothing fluky about it. The Tigers clearly outplayed the Tide, a rarity in the Nick Saban era. 11. So far the Jim Harbaugh era at Michigan has been far more interesting in the offseason than it has from September to January. 12. Harbaugh is now 0-3 against Ohio State, and surely there are some Wolverines fans losing patience. Though probably just some. The program is in far better shape than it has been since the 1990s. 13. Michigan's 8-4 record this season is not shocking, but still pretty empty, with no victories against winning teams. Next season Harbaugh returns a mountain of talent and it will be on him to develop Brandon Peters or Dylan McCaffrey into a top-tier quarterback. No more excuses. 14. Ohio State coach Urban Meyer is now 27-3 in rivalry games, dating back to when he went 1-1 coaching Bowling Green against Toledo. It's an impressive number in a Hall of Fame career and speaks to how well Meyer taps into the emotions of his players. 15. While it is understandable that Meyer would be upset about his quarterback being injured on a crowded sideline during pre-game warm-up, the coach's reaction to J.T. Barrett's injury seemed a bit melodramatic. 16. Barrett said he will be good to go next week, though backup Dwayne Haskins played well against Michigan. The last time Barrett was hurt against Michigan and Ohio State's backup quarterback had to play Wisconsin in the Big 10 title game, the world was introduced to Cardale Jones. That worked out okay for the Buckeyes. 17. Baker Mayfield's punishment for being knucklehead last week against Kansas turned out to be 2 plays. That's how long it took the Sooners to score on their first possession against West Virginia. Mayfield then took over and went 14 of 17 for 281 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Heisman Trophy is still all his, barring some sort of 5-interception meltdown in the Big 12 title game next week. 18. Stanford's Bryce Love, battling through a sore ankle, went for 125 yards and a touchdown against number 9 Notre Dame, and Washington helped the Cardinal win the Pac-12 North by beating Washington State. Love gets another big stage against USC in the Pac-12 title game, but it looks like Stanford will have to settle for having the Heisman runner-up for the 5th time since 2010. 19. It was a little weird to hear Nebraska athletic director Bill Moos say that he would consider UCF coach and former Cornhuskers quarterback Scott Frost.